October 9, 2025. China's Ministry of Commerce makes an announcement. Any foreign entity exporting products containing more than 0.1% rare earth elements or produced using Chinese mining, refining, or magnet-making technology must obtain a license. The Nasdaq crashes 3.56% overnight. President Trump threatens to cancel his meeting with Xi Jinping, calling it a hostile trade act. Within 2 weeks, rare earth stocks explode. USA rare earth surges 155%, from $17.27 to $43.98 per share. But here's what's terrifying. This isn't even the first time this has happened. Why would a simple policy document from a Chinese government ministry send the world's most powerful military machine into panic mode? Why would restrictions on a commodity that represents less than 0.1% of global trade trigger fears of worldwide supply chain collapse? Because China just reminded the world of something. There's a weapon more deadly than aircraft carriers, more insidious than nuclear bombs. And this weapon? It's in your pocket right now, inside your iPhone. It's in your garage, powering your Tesla. It's in America's most advanced F-35 fighter jet, over 400 kilograms in every single aircraft. It's called rare earth elements. Today, I'm going to show you how these metals you've probably never heard of transformed from rocks in the ground into the sharpest geopolitical weapon in China's arsenal. This is a story about strategy, patience, and power. First, let's get clear on what we're actually talking about. Rare earths aren't one element. There's 17 chemical elements, from lanthanum, cerium, praseodymium, neodymium, all the way to lutetium, plus scandium and yttrium, names you probably can't even pronounce. That's okay. Even chemists get confused. But here's the massive irony. Rare earths aren't rare at all. They're 1,000 times more abundant than gold in the Earth's crust. 200 times more common than silver. So why are they called rare? Because while they're not scarce, they're extremely dispersed, and the process of extracting and separating them is nightmarishly complex. Imagine this. You need to separate 17 chemically similar elements from a pile of rocks. For every ton of rare earth you refine, you produce about 2,000 tons of toxic waste. That's why, even though many countries have rare earth deposits, only a handful are willing to do this dirty work. So why do rare earths matter so much? Because they're the vitamins of modern technology. You don't need much, but without them, the entire system collapses. Let me give you specific examples. Your iPhone screen displays a billion colors. Thank europium and terbium. They make LED screens produce red and green light. Tesla Model 3 can drive 600 kilometers. Thank neodymium and praseodymium. They create the world's strongest permanent magnets, boosting motor efficiency by 30%. F-35's precision-guided missiles can hit moving targets. Thanks samarium, its cobalt magnets maintain magnetism at 300 degrees Celsius. Wind turbines can operate offshore for 20 years without maintenance. Thank dysprosium and terbium, they keep magnets stable in extreme conditions. And that's just the beginning. Lasers, radar, night vision, MRI machines, catalytic converters. Without rare earths, our technology level would instantly regress to the 1980s. Now here's the crazy part about global reserves. China only holds 37% of the world's rare earth reserves. Vietnam has 18%. Brazil has 18%. Russia has 10%. In other words, China doesn't have a monopoly on rare earth resources. So why does China control 90% of global rare earth supply today? This is where the story gets interesting. This was a 40-year strategic master plan. In 1992, Deng Xiaoping said something during his southern tour. The Middle East has oil. China has rare earths. Many people thought this was just a casual comparison. Wrong. This was a great power announcing to the world, we've found our strategic resource. But in 1992, America didn't care. Why? because at the time, California's Mountain Pass mine supplied over 70% of the world's rare earths. China only had 30%. America thought, rare earths? It's just mining. What's the big deal? But China saw a different future. The Chinese government made a decision: designate rare earths as a strategic resource with national-level support. Then, they made their first move. Throughout the 1990s, China invested heavily at the national level in rare earth mining and refining technology. Chinese companies aggressively undercut prices to capture market share. Global rare earth prices crashed 60 to 70%. Under the double impact of cheap Chinese rare earths and environmental incidents, America's Mountain Pass mine shut down completely in 2002. Australia's Lynas nearly went bankrupt, surviving only on government subsidies. One by one, rare earth companies worldwide exited the market. By 2005, China controlled over 90% of global rare earth production. But that wasn't enough. I need to state a fact many people don't want to acknowledge. China's rare earth advantage was bought with massive environmental destruction. In Baotou, Inner Mongolia, there's an 11-square-kilometer tailings lake, though calling it a lake is generous. It's a toxic waste pond from rare earth refining. The water is black. Nothing grows around it. Radiation levels exceed safe limits. Ganzhou, Jiangxi, called the Rare Earth Kingdom, but at what cost? Hundreds of mountains hollowed out, groundwater contaminated, farmers' health compromised. Let me be objective here. Western countries didn't just close their rare earth industries because of price competition. It was also about environmental costs. In America, building a rare earth refinery takes 2 to 3 years just for environmental assessment. Environmental protection accounts for 40% of total costs. In the 2000s China, these costs were transferred to the environment and local residents. I'm not praising this, I'm stating facts. China traded environmental damage for strategic advantage. By 2010, America's rare earth industry had completely vanished, 100% import dependent. China controlled 97% of global rare earth production. But the most lethal part wasn't production. This is the key point many people miss. Mining rare earths isn't actually that hard. Many countries can dig them up. But refining and separating rare earths? Desperately difficult. Remember what I said? 17 chemically similar elements that need to be separated one by one. This requires extremely complex chemical processes and decades of accumulated expertise. China spent 20 years building a complete rare earth industrial chain: mining, separation and purification, deep processing, permanent magnet manufacturing, and alloy production. By 2015, China didn't just control mining, it controlled 90% of rare earth refining capacity, 95% of permanent magnet production, and 90% of rare earth polishing powder. What does this mean? It means even if you have rare earth ore, without Chinese technology, you just have a pile of rocks. Like having crude oil but no refinery. What can you do with it? Let me show you the numbers so you understand how complete China's dominance is. Rare earth reserves, China, 37%. Other countries, 63%. Rare earth mining, China, 97%. Other countries, 3%. Rare earth refining, China, 95%. Other countries, 5%. Permanent magnet manufacturing, China, 90%. Other countries, 10%. This is the power of strategy, using 40 years to transform a resource advantage into absolute industrial monopoly. But this was just the setup. What really turned rare earths into a nuclear weapon is what happened next. September 7th, 2010. East China Sea near the Diaoyu Islands. A Chinese fishing boat is detained by the Japan Coast Guard. The captain is arrested. This kind of thing had happened before, usually diplomatic protests, then crew released after a few days. But this time, China's response was different. No diplomatic notes, no military exercises, not even an official statement. China just quietly did one thing: stopped exporting rare earths to Japan. Notice, not an announced embargo. Customs just suddenly strengthened inspections. Approvals suddenly slowed down. But the effect was lethal. Japan got 70% of its rare earths from China. Toyota's hybrid cars need 1 kilogram of neodymium each. Sony TVs need 500 grams of europium each. Panasonic batteries depend on lanthanum. Supply chains started breaking. Japan's automotive and electronics industries faced production shutdowns. Rare earth prices exploded multiple times over, reaching historic peaks in the following months. Some products surged over 1,000%. 2 weeks later, September 24th, Japan released the Chinese captain. No apology, no explanation, just released him. The whole world suddenly realized something. Rare earths aren't a commodity. Rare earths are a weapon, and China had just demonstrated how to use it. Of course, Western countries wouldn't stand by. In 2012, the US, EU, and Japan jointly sued China at the WTO, accusing China of restricting rare earth exports. In 2014, the WTO ruled against China. Reason: China's export quotas violated free trade principles. China's response: officially, they removed export quotas. But simultaneously, China did 3 things. First, raised environmental standards. Many small, rare earth companies couldn't meet standards and shut down. Second, strengthened export licensing management. Approval processes became stricter, requiring more documentation. Third, consolidated the domestic rare earth industry. Hundreds of scattered rare earth companies merged into 6 major state-controlled groups. The result? Export quotas were removed, but actual export volumes didn't surge as expected. That's when Washington understood, you can win the lawsuit, but you can't win reality. This incident taught the world a lesson. Supply chains equal power. Whoever controls the supply chain of critical resources controls the negotiating table. But the 2010 Diaoyu Islands incident was just a warning. The real nuclear deterrent happened in the trade war. In 2018, the Trump administration launched a full-scale trade war against China. Tariffs, Huawei sanctions, TikTok bans, chip export restrictions. America played almost every card. China retaliated. Tariffs on U.S. soybeans and cars, an unreliable entity list. But there was one card China held the entire time without playing it. Rare earths. May 20th, 2019. Xi Jinping visited Jiangxi Ganzhou and inspected a rare earth company, JL Mag. This company produces rare earth permanent magnets. Customers include Tesla and Apple. During the visit, Xi said, "Rare earths are an important strategic resource." Was this just a routine inspection? No. In China's political language, every action by leaders carries meaning, especially during the height of the trade war. May 28th, China's state media, People's Daily, used relatively strong language suggesting that if the trade war escalated, China might use rare earth exports as a countermeasure. Market reaction was immediate. U.S. rare earth stocks surged 30% in a single day. Investors frantically bought anything rare earth related. The Pentagon convened emergency meetings. The Defense Secretary demanded an assessment. If China cuts off rare earth supply, how long can U.S. military industry survive? When the assessment came back, people at the Pentagon fell silent. Let me show you the data so you understand why the Pentagon panicked. F-35 fighter jets. Each requires over 400 kilograms of rare earths. The U.S. plans to produce 2,500 aircraft. Total rare earth requirement, over 1,000 tons. Aegis missile defense system. Radar systems use samarium cobalt magnets. No substitutes exist. Precision-guided weapons. Laser guidance requires neodymium iron boron magnets. Each missile needs 2 to 5 kilograms. Night vision goggles, lanthanum glass, is the core material. Each unit needs 100 grams. Jet engines, high-temperature alloys, require ytterbium and samarium. Each engine needs 50 kilograms. Even more lethal, the U.S. Department of Defense's rare earth strategic reserves would last only 6 months. Rebuilding a complete rare earth supply chain would take at least 5 to 10 years. What does this mean? It means if China actually cut off supply, U.S. military industry would collapse within 6 months. F-35 production halted. Missile production halted. All advanced weapon systems completely halted. But rare earth impacts go far beyond the military. Apple needs hundreds of tons of rare earths annually. iPhone vibration motors need neodymium iron boron magnets. Without them, no iPhone production. Tesla Model 3 motors need at least 2 kilograms of neodymium each. In 2023, Tesla produced 1.8 million vehicles. Calculate how much rare earth that requires. The Biden administration's Green New Deal heavily promotes wind power and electric vehicles. But here's the irony. 95% of wind turbine permanent magnets come from China. 90% of rare earths for EV permanent magnet motors come from China. In other words, America's green future is built on China's rare earth supply. In 2019, China just showed the blade. By 2023, China actually started cutting. July 2023, China's Ministry of Commerce announced export controls on gallium and germanium. While not among the 17 rare earth elements, these metals are equally critical. Gallium is used in semiconductors and solar cells. Germanium is used in optical fibers and infrared optics. China controls 94% of global gallium production and 83% of germanium production. December 2023, China further announced restrictions on exporting rare earth refining technology and equipment. This move was even more ruthless because it directly cut off other countries' ability to build rare earth industries. You can mine ore, but you don't have the technology to turn ore into usable materials. And now in 2025, China continues tightening rare earth export controls. While Chinese officials emphasize there's no embargo, the signal is clear. Rare earths have transformed from potential weapon to actively deployed strategic tool. Let me summarize the data so you feel China's level of control. Mining, China, 70%. Refining, China, 90%. Permanent magnet manufacturing, China, 95%. Polishing materials, China, 90%. Catalysts, China, 85%. What does this mean? It's like OPEC controlling oil, but with even stronger control. Because with oil, you at least have Venezuela, Russia, and domestic U.S. production. But with rare earths, you essentially only have China. This is why rare earths are called a nuclear weapon. They don't explode. They don't kill people. But they can shut down a superpower's industry. They can turn the most advanced fighter jets into scrap metal. They can make green energy revolution empty talk. And China holds this button. Of course, America won't just sit there. Over the past 5 years, Washington has been trying to break China's monopoly. But reality is brutal. In 2017, after 15 years of bankruptcy, California's Mountain Pass mine reopened. The U.S. government and private investors poured in over $1.5 billion. Sounds like good news, right? But here's the problem. What do you do with the mined rare earth ore? Where do you refine it? The answer is almost laughable. Ship it to China. In fact, Chinese rare earth company Shanghai Resources was a major investor in reopening the mine. Because America has no rare earth refining facilities. To be precise, America has refining technology, but no factories. Build one? At least 5 years. Environmental assessment alone takes 2 years. Environmental protection accounts for 40% of total costs. And even if built, costs would be 3 times China's. Another brutal reality of rebuilding this industry: many rare earth elements aren't mined as primary metals, but are byproducts. For example, gallium sources are almost entirely from byproduct production. Producing 1 ton of gallium typically requires processing over 20,000 tons of bauxite while producing 10 tons of aluminum. This process consumes massive amounts of electricity, and with global aluminum oversupply, the metal aluminum is hard to sell efficiently. Nobody wants to be forced to accept your aluminum just to buy your gallium. This is the harsh reality. You can reopen mines, but you can't rebuild the entire industrial chain. Because industrial chains aren't just about money. They're about time, technology, talent, and ecosystems. These things can't be caught up in 5 years. America also partnered with Australia's Lynas Corporation. Lynas is the world's largest rare earth producer outside China. But even as the largest, its output is only 1/10 of China's. In 2021, the U.S. Department of Defense invested $30 million to help Lynas build a rare earth separation facility in Texas. Expected completion, 2025. But even when complete, annual capacity will only be 5,000 tons. America's annual rare earth demand, 30,000 tons. So this facility can only meet 1/6 of U.S. needs. America is also negotiating with Canada and Greenland. But the problem is the same. You can find mines, but you can't build the industrial chain. American scientists are also researching alternatives: rare earth-free permanent magnets. Theoretically possible, but performance is only 70% of rare earth magnets, and costs are higher. Recovering rare earths from e-waste, technically feasible, but effective recovery rates are typically below 40%, and it still requires complex chemical processes. Deep-sea rare earth mining: the Pacific seabed has abundant rare earths, but extraction costs are 10 times land mining, and environmental controversies are massive. All these alternatives, optimistically, need at least 10 years to commercialize. And China won't wait 10 years. While America struggles to rebuild supply chains, China is already planning the next move. Chinese companies are massively acquiring rare earth mining rights in Africa, South America, and Greenland. In 2023, overseas rare earth mine capacity controlled by Chinese companies exceeded 50,000 tons. What does this mean? It means even if other countries develop new mines, the money and technology behind them might still come from China. China also doesn't just control rare earth production, but also controls permanent magnet motor patents, rare earth catalyst formulas, and polishing powder technical standards. This is the most powerful part. Even if you have rare earths, without these application technologies, you still can't manufacture products. At this point, I must speak objectively. China's rare earth advantage was built step by step through 40 years of strategic planning, technical accumulation, and environmental costs. In the 1990s, when America thought rare earths were a sunset industry, China saw their future value. In the 2000s, when Western countries exited due to environmental costs, China was willing to bear that cost. In the 2010s, when the world depended on Chinese supply, China began controlling pricing power. But this also brings real risks to the world. Over-reliance on a single supplier is extremely dangerous, regardless of whether that supplier is America, China, or any other country. At least for the next 10 years, one thing is certain: rare earths remain China's sharpest card. And America is still struggling to escape this predicament. All right, let's return to the original question. How did rare earths become China's nuclear weapon in the trade war? The answer, in 5 steps. In the 1990s, when the world thought rare earths were ordinary minerals, China saw their strategic value in the high-tech era. Deng Xiaoping's statement wasn't a metaphor, it was prophecy. In the 2000s, using low prices and environmental costs, China forced global competitors out of the market. America's Mountain Pass closed. Western rare earth industries vanished. In the 2010s, China didn't just control mining, but refining, processing, and applications. By 2015, China commanded 90% of rare earth refining capacity. In 2010, the Diaoyu Islands incident, China first demonstrated rare earth's weapon attributes. The world realized supply chains equal power. From 2019 to 2025, from Xi inspecting the rare earth factory to people's daily warnings to 2023 export controls, China transformed rare earths from potential deterrent into actively deployed strategic tool. What does this story teach us? Great power competition isn't just about GDP and aircraft carriers. Sometimes an inconspicuous metal and an invisible supply chain can reshape the entire world's power structure. Rare earths don't explode. They don't cause bloodshed, but they can ground F-35s, halt iPhone production, and make green revolution empty rhetoric. This is the 21st century's nuclear weapon. Quiet, hidden, but lethal. And this game is far from over. In the next 10 years, we'll see, can America rebuild its rare earth industrial chain? Can new technologies reduce dependence on rare earths? How will global supply chains reorganize? These questions have no answers yet, but for now, the rare earth card is in China's hand. If this opened your eyes, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next one.